Hey, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and after being sick for weeks on end, I'm finally back to recording some new content. Today I'm going to take a look at the BrickLayer post-processing script in OrcaSlicer, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to give a brief overview of the idea of bricklaying and why it would be important for 3D printing. Now, if you look at this top left drawing, and this is part of a pattern, you'll notice all these lines are laid down basically parallel and perpendicular to each other. So you'll see there's lots of voids here. Well, when we're building our walls for 3D printing, we're printing a layer, it's laying down the layers similar to this. So there's voids, which means that the print's not quite as strong. There's not as much bonding. The idea of bricklaying is you sort of offset everything. And as you notice on this right-hand drawing, there's less voids. So the print should be stronger. Now, apparently, some of this has been around for quite a while, and nobody's really done anything with this because of a 2020 patent, and everybody was afraid to try implementing this officially in any slicers. Now, what's been interesting is about a month ago, and I am behind on this, as I mentioned, I've been sick. Okay, Roman Henger over at TenTech has created a script, and it's a post-processing script that works either in OrcaSlicer or OrcaSlicer that implements the BrickLayer functionality. So basically what it does, if you're not familiar with a post-processing script, your slicer will slice your model and then apply the script to the resulting G-code. And that resulting G-code would then, again, manipulate the layers. So it would be doing offset and bricklaying style layout for your walls. And your print should be much stronger. Now, if we look in these posts, and this is a Hackaday post talking about the post processor, there's a link to a GitHub repository. And this is the Henninger Technologies repo. And I'm just looking at these BrickLayer functions. The last time this was updated was about 2 weeks ago. And there's two different scripts here. There's one for bricklaying only, another for bricklaying plus non-planar infill. But that's only been tested on OrcaSlicer. Today, I'm just going to look at this BrickLayer script and how I set up the post-processing script in OrcaSlicer. And I'll take a look at doing this with a Benchy and how long it takes to print the Benchy pre-script and then post-script. So that way we can just look and compare the two and just see if there's any differences. We'll also take a look at each of the Benchies and see if we can tell any difference, see if there's any quality changes. Now, it might help before we actually start with OrcaSlicer if I clone the repository and get the script on my machine. Now, I need to point out that just loading random scripts is not particularly a good idea. In my case, I know Python, so I've looked through the script and I actually feel pretty comfortable with it. And so I'm not worried that it's going to do anything nefarious on my machine. So to start out, in my case, I usually put all my GitHub repositories in a development folder. That way I know where they're at. So I'm going to CD into my development folder. And in your case, whether you're using Mac or Windows, you need to go to the location you're going to store the script. You also need to make sure you have Git installed. If people are interested and need to know how to set up Git in Python, that's a little bit outside the scope of this video. But if you need help with that, shoot me an email or leave a comment, and I'll do a quick video on how to set those up, both on Windows and on Mac OS. So to clone the repository, I'm just going to do git clone and then go back over to my browser and just go to code. And I'm going to click SSH and I'm just going to copy this URL. And then once I have that copied, I can paste stuff in and then download it. And if I look, the name of the folder that stored this in is going to be BrickLayers. So let's just type a quick ls. There's BrickLayers. Now I want to point out that this is not in lowercase, so it's a capital B. That'll be important, particularly on my Mac, because paths will be case sensitive. So right now I have the script installed. Now that we can see the script is on my machine, we need the path for both the script and our install of Python. Now, in my case, I'm using Mac OS, and a lot of you are probably using Windows. You need to know where you have Python installed. If you haven't installed it, you need to install it. As I mentioned earlier, let me know if you need to see a video on how to install Python. In order to find the install or the path to Python on Mac OS and in Windows, I'm going to post links to 2 different articles I found that you should find helpful that'll let you know what the install path of Python is. So let me pause and bring those websites up so we can take a quick look. Now, there's 2 websites I found that have steps to find your Python path, and you can use either one. I'll list them in the video description. There are steps here and 2 different methodologies for finding your path via the command line in the terminal. And then also in Mac, there's a couple of different ways of finding it as well. In my case, I have Python installed via Homebrew. And if I just go back over to my terminal, I can paste in the brew info Python command, hit it. And then if I look right here, it's showing me the path where Python is installed. And in fact, that Python 3 is my executable. So I'm just going to copy that. And then over here in OrcaSlicer, I've created a new process profile called Boron Standard PLA-BL, as in BrickLayer. And if I go to Other and scroll down, and let me just clear out what I have, I'm going to type in quotation marks, paste quotation marks, and then hit space. So now I have my install of Python. And then I just want to navigate over to my folder where I have the BrickLayer script. And I'm going to right click on that. In my case, I'm just going to do copy path. And again, go over here. And I want to make sure there's a space in between the Python install and the script. I'm going to type in quotation marks, paste, and then end quotation marks. And so what that does is puts in the script. Now, right now, I'm running the script as the default settings. If we look over here in the GitHub repository, let me back up one, you can see that by default, it'll run a layer height of 0.2, which is what I have. Then you can also change the parameters. So I can change the layer height, and I can also change the extrusion multiplier. And according to this, it looks like we're possibly, if we increase the extrusion multiplier, we'll probably get a little bit more strength in our print. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to copy this. And again, going back over to OrcaSlicer, I can just hit space and then paste those parameters in. And what those will do is send that to the script and basically use those parameters. Now, in my case, I'm going to hit slice plate. Now, here's something that was a little bit confusing to me. When I looked, it says 42 minutes and 48 seconds. If I switch back over here to just my regular profile and slice the benchy, it's still the same amount. And I thought, well, did it actually run the script? How do I know? Well, it turns out when you look at it, it's actually not running the script because there's post-processing till you export the G code out. So I'm going to export the G code. As you can see, I've had to pause here for a second. When I export out the G code, I'm getting an error. And it turns out that there is a typo on the README in the GitHub, particularly in OrcaSlicer. In the repo, down in the example, it's spelled layer height, all lowercase, but in actuality, it should be layer height as up here with a capital H. So if I just go back over to OrcaSlicer, change the H here in layer height to capital H. If I go ahead and run it, it slices my print, export G-code. I'm going to overwrite the previous file, and that generates the new Benchy. I've uploaded both files to Mainsail, and you'll notice here's my original Benchy, and that's showing as 4.2 megs. The Benchy that's using the BrickLayer is bigger, and that's showing 6.3 megs. Everything else is the same now. With that being said, it's going to be hard to tell what's going to happen till I actually print. So I finished printing, and I have some type of problem with my printer, and I've noticed this is even slicing. You notice I have some roughness here, so on one side. So there's an issue with my slicer, and I say that slicer because I did this on 2 different printers to test it. So I think there's a problem with my model. Now I'm just going to point out, I can't tell the difference between these two, but on the one side they do have an imperfection. Now just to test things, I went over and did a Cali cat, and this is the original without BrickLayer. And then this is with BrickLayer. And again, I can't tell the difference. So both of these look pretty good. I think there's some slight tuning I need to do with the printer. But overall, I'm actually really pleased with this. And I think it looks good. There's maybe a little bit in here, but that could be the seam as much as anything else. So overall, and the one with the O is the original, I'm pretty satisfied with the BrickLayer, and I think I'm going to implement it on all my printers. So I pulled out my scale, and I'm just going to measure and weigh the original. That's 7 grams. The new one is 8 grams. And what's interesting is I'm just going to do these 2 benchies. So I believe this is the original, and this is the new. So what I'm seeing is the BrickLayer uses slightly more filament, which that sort of makes sense because part of the point of it is to fill voids. So again, it's taking up more volume. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with the BrickLayer functionality and the BrickLayer script. And what I think I'm going to do is include that on all my prints moving forward. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Have a good day.